Good morning and welcome to Marjorie's Table on this 23rd of July. Where is the summer going, folks? I have no idea. And as I look outside in Edinburgh today, it looks like it could be autumn already. So I'm hoping the summer is somewhere behind the corner, or whether it's possibly it's just Edinburgh har. I always forget about that strange Edinburgh phenomenon of grey. If you're new with us this morning, I'm going to walk us through what we're going to do every stage of the way. So you don't concern yourself with getting it wrong or that you're out of line. You can always mute me if you hit a rich vein and want to keep writing. But in general, we're going to do what we always do in these sessions, which is a quick warm up. And then we'll look at two separate poems. Today, we're looking at the terrific poet Oluwaseun Oliweo. No, I said that wrong. Olayiwola. His first collection, Strange Beach, which I have admired so much, I thought I would look at some of the work today. But before we get there, let's do the usual warm up this morning. And if you haven't done this with me before, there's no way to get it wrong. I'm going to give you two separate words, and I want you to make a list of words that come, however they come, free association. There's no right answer to these at all. So the first of those words is launch. Launch. I'm going to pop that in the chat box in case my American accent is getting in the way. Launch. Now try anchor. Make a list of words for whatever comes to mind for anchor. And if you feel up to it, but only if you do and you're live with us, pop a few of your favorite words from that exercise in the chat box and we'll share them. I'm going to read a few of them out. And the idea is to steal a few for your own list so that when we get to writing, you've got a few words that you haven't come up with necessarily, but that you're trying to get into your writing. I'll do the same. Okay, here they come. I'll read a few out. Stars, rust, barnacle, fear of failure, beautiful, propel, embark, rivulets, flow, encourage, courage, not encourage, hold fast, safe, home, encrusted, beautiful, dive, haul. I put tendrils, memories, withering. I'm only reading about a quarter of them. To propel seeds into the air, beautiful, Orla. Fly and stability, hold fast. What a beautiful word. Set in motion. Right hand man, that's beautiful. Floating rush, grounded, ship in the dock, prayer for holding a space, for a holding space, beautiful. Champagne, I love that. Desert, St. Nicholas Harbor. Okay, I'm going to stop there. But if you're live with me this morning, and usually, but the same number of people that are live with us in the morning tend to watch the recording later. So if you're live with me this morning, you can keep scrolling and find a few that you like. If you're watching the recording, I will have popped a few of these into the email as well. So you'll have a few to choose from. And the idea, because I will forget to say it once we get to the poem, is to try and get some of these words, a couple of these words, even just one of these words into your writing. It makes your writing often go in directions that we wouldn't normally go in, and I think that's usually good. Because it becomes surprising to us and it can be surprising to everyone else. If you don't like it in the end, it's easy to take it out or back it out if it doesn't sound like you um, later when you're editing the work. But it often makes us head off in directions that we wouldn't normally do. For example, if you're trying to use the word tendrils, when you're writing a poem about walking to the bus, for example, suddenly my brain thinks, ooh, what's the tendril? How do I get there when I'm trying to write this very specific poem? So try that. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Today, we're going to look at a couple of poems. I'm going to share my screen, but I've also put the link to the poem into the chat box because these are on Granta's site and they are very small. So I will read it off the screen with my glasses on. But if you can't see it, I've given you the link so that you can expand it if you'd like. Again, this is Oluwaseun's Olayiwola. I don't know why I want to say Olayiwola. This book, Strange Beach, out with Fitzcarraldo. It's a beautiful book. I was astounded by it. I just picked it up uh, and really taken with the work. It's really challenging. I find it challenging. So if you find it challenging, you're not alone. But that's no reason for us to shy away from it. We often I try and make things feel challenging and then maybe not so challenging in alternate so that we make sure we get lots of different poetry here. Strange Beach. I'm going to give it a go. This is a challenging one to read too. I practiced last night. Unable to get from the underneath side of the stones that flank the sand, the body, blown from every direction into like a conch shell where the echo of excess, emotion, enraptures the chamber, where once was a body willing to die inside of, longing to. This is the obsession, this hour of philosophy, this transatlantic voyage spread on the page like an oil spill, the blue and black arsenal of water whispering inevitably as if it were in a wind. Was it worth it? Worth? Worth. It circles you, the increasing gap between the surface of the water and the stillness you entirely inhabit, so as to sink to the ocean floor, but properly with no effect on velocity. Stingrays, desire, the inseparability of light and dark. How beautiful you have been and are, giving your whole life to a pointless competition. So I'm going to read it again. If you have comments on this poem, please share them because I think it's a challenging piece and I certainly don't have all the answers, but I'll give you a couple of craft notes about what I think is going well in this poem for later for when you're editing your work. Strange Beach. Unable to get from the underside of the stones that flank the sand, the body, blown from every direction into like a conch shell, where the echo of excess emotion enraptures the chamber, where once was a body willing to die inside of, longing to. This is the obsession, this hour of philosophy, this transatlantic voyage spread on the page like an oil spill, the blue and black arsenal of water whispering inevitably, as if it were in a wind. Was it worth it? Worth. Worth. It encircles around you, the increasing gap between the surface of the water and the stillness you entirely inhabit, so as to sink to the ocean floor, but properly with no effect on velocity. Stingrays, desire, the inseparability of light and dark. How beautiful you have been and are, giving your whole life to a pointless competition. Okay, a couple of comments about this poem that I took away from it. And again, these are just craft notes for you to think about, partly when you're editing your work, certainly not when you're writing it in about a minute or two. But when we take the work that we've kind of spilled onto the page, how we shape it is often formed by the way that we've read and understood or been given permission by the other work that we read. And I think this is a great example of that. If you write with me every week or have written with me before, you'll know that I'm a little bit obsessed with form. And here there really isn't one, at least not one that I can see. He does all kinds of things, starts lines in a way that isn't patterned. Sometimes he does two. Down here, he's doing one, two, and then the two spread. He's got spaces inside a line. I often say that's instead of a comma, for example, but he's doing both. So he's breaking all the form rules here. There is no form. And I think in terms of the subject matter, and I can see some of your comments. I can't see the comments. I can see you're making them. So I'll come back to them in a second. But I think that gives us permission in a way. Two things it does. I think the first thing it does is it matches its subject matter. It feels like we're in the water or somewhere lost, at least. As a reader, we're not sure where the phrases begin and end, whether they're within the lines themselves, whether they're carrying on. It was unclear to me how to read it. And that gives this sensation of being slightly lost, slightly unsure. And I think that matches what's going on in the poem. So that's the first thing. The lack of certainty in the poem adds to the poem in a way. The form is giving us something that the words are doing, but adds to it. So it kind of accelerates it or makes it larger, and how we feel slightly unsure, which I think is what's going on in the poem as well, which is terrific. Um, we can choose to kind of drown or gather snippets or take from it what we will, but it's almost like the poet's giving us permission to do that, permission to see it in a number of ways, which is terrific. And then the thing that I don't talk about that much, but I wanted to focus on today a little bit is just to point out this last line. It's a beautiful, stunning moment. This pointless competition is almost a new idea. I think it refers back to what's happening in the poem as well. But giving your whole life to a pointless competition is a terrific line and a big idea that comes at the end. What I want to say to you is when you're editing your work, editing, not writing, editing, look for a line that would do this. Look for a line that has that sort of, wow, that's almost like a twist. It's almost like the volta in a sonnet. It does something new with what came before. It opens up a new idea. And it could be that you have to cut the rest of the poem, which is heartbreaking for us, or save it for another poem. Or you could twist your poem and try and engineer a big line like this to be at the end. But this M dash at the end is giving us permission to keep thinking, to let us know that it's not over. But now it's over to us to keep thinking, which does a lot of the work in the poem. So we're lost, and then there's something very specific. I think we probably can all imagine giving your life to a pointless competition. So it's specific enough to give us something that we know where we are, and then says, over to you. It's a beautiful way to end a poem, and I thought it was worth talking about. Okay, enough of me talking about it. I'm trying to find your comments. Here we go. A lot of comments. I'm glad. Here we go. The form feels like a disintegrating body falling to the ocean floor, showing us how we get to the opening line. It's beautiful, Sarah. I agree. It feels like falling through water to me too. The repetition of worth and the pointless competition, the colonizer, material, natural world, Jillian, I agree. I think the repetition is always when a poet repeats, it's always worth paying attention. And that also means that when we repeat, we need to make sure we want the reader to pay attention. Lines on the page move like shifting on the surface of the water. That's how I felt too, or a person floating in water, circling like a seagull or a shark. Great. Um, Opening up. Janet says he feels like he's opening up more than space to hold emotion. I agreed. It somehow does more than the language, which I think is really strong. Um, what else? I love the way the language lands on me, even though I don't fully understand the meaning. Mags, I agree. And I think the form gives us permission just to sit with it if it were in a tight little sonnet, I would feel like I needed to understand it more, but that's not what's happening here. I somehow am okay with it. It's like floating in a way that feels okay. Great ending, Orla, I agree. Yoku, just potential to take the life, arsenal danger. There's some weird syntax, she, I agree, into like a conch shell. I tripped on that. I had to practice it. Um, and Leonie, the blue and black arsenal, stunning and devastating poem. So much said beneath the water. Okay, we could talk about this poem the whole time and you wouldn't get any writing done. So I'm going to give you two separate prompts to this. As ever, if there's something else that has stuck out at you, a line that you want to steal and start with, use it as a golden shovel, anything other thing that has struck you and you want to try, do that. But your first prompt from me is to write about a gap between surface and what's inside, stillness or something at a time when the surface and what was inside didn't match. There's a gap of some kind. It could be when you're angry, it could be when you're happy, just a moment when you couldn't say anything. Could be when you didn't want to get out of bed this morning to do writing with me. However, that comes a moment when the surface and the inside, whether that's still or not, doesn't match. Remember the stack of funny words around launch and anchor to try and get one of them in. It's 47 minutes past. It's a bit later than usual. So I'll give us till 52, 53. Actually, I'll be generous. 53 minutes past, and then I'll give you a second prompt. Feel free to ignore that if you're busy writing. And I'll pop that in the chat box just now. Just another 30 seconds or so on that one. Okay, if you want to swap prompts, try writing about a time when you asked yourself whether something was worth it, the idea of worth, or question the idea of worth. But I think probably simpler is there a moment in your life, or imagine someone else's life, write a fictional point of view about someone asking themselves whether something, whatever it is worth it. I'll give us another 4.5 minutes on that, and then I'll read us out of the room with a final poem. Okay, just another 30 seconds on that one. Here's this last poem for us to read on our way out. It's called Coast. There's just a large piece of artwork in between. There we are, Coast. He said, in another language, I had become proficient in pretending I understood. The beach was still the beach, picturesque, cold this time of year when everyone preferred the closeness of coffee shops. Need it be that serious? Yes, he said, the waves moaning how they're moon trained all year, regardless of season, folding, unfolding, unconcerned with us, little interruptions in the way of things. Stunning little poem. If you got a copy of Oluwaseun's collection, you'll see he's very proficient with form as well. So never think that the lack of form is anything but a choice about how we put our words on the page. But the prompt to take away for this one is write about a time when you were proficient in pretending that you understood something and you didn't. Or again, you can imagine someone else or someone in your family having had to pretend that they were proficient in understanding or proficient in something and they weren't. So that's the takeaway prompt. I will send out the links to these poems, but also the link to a mixtape of poems he himself suggests that he really likes, which I thought was really interesting, to some poems that have really meant a lot to him, with a couple of notes as well about why he likes them. Thanks for being here with me today. If you're new, welcome. Or if you're trying it out, I hope you've managed to get a bit of writing that you are happy with. And for everyone else, and you too, I hope I'll see you same time, same place next Wednesday. Have a great week, everyone.